Da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. Da-da-da-da-dum. Da-dum, 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 da-dum.
Hey,
Hey, can you hear me?
yep,
I'm tired.
reasonable.
Are you just talking softly or are you?
I don't know, my audio's on and it says the volume is up.
Then we need to reinstate your mic situation
Okay.
so that we can go all the way up. Yeah. Um, I just turned off of work like seconds ago. Um, I would say maybe it's been a full minute, but my eyeballs are bugging out of my skull. So if I sound a little cracked out today, that's why. I finally go ahead. You're gonna say something.
Hey, that's motivation for us to keep this one to an hour so you can still go take a walk in the outside.
Aha, yes, to leave the confinement of my bedroom office. Um, yeah, yeah. The
Mhm.
I almost I want to say I'm I'm frustrated because I want to be proud of my work when I do it. Like I don't feel like it's a win when I accomplish something, and that's a really terrible feeling. To complete a task, especially if it was really difficult, and to not feel like victory. It just feels like, oh, great, because there's no I'm not like I don't need rewards, but it's just like, all right, next, because I finished this big project. It took me like 20 hours, and because I'm a insane person, I track time on all activity. I'm an analyst, yo. So I track time on goddamn everything. And so what did this thing take? 21 hours and 14 minutes uh,
Ooh, snap.
to to deal with this nasty ass data set. And it wouldn't have taken that long, but I missed a big chunk because I had a null value. And what that means is I had a blank in my data set, which means that it cut off everything after that blank. So I had to go back in and then run my process, which, a big chunk of that process was automated. So I ran a Python script and it cleaned out like the first thing. But there's a bunch of shit in there that is like I have like a known customer list, and so I've got to feed the known customer list in. And then I've got a bunch of naming conventions that I've got to sort for. But the thing that kept screwing me up was special characters. And I
Ah,
couldn't get my special character filter just tight enough because it's like this is an international company, right? So there's a lot of umlauts and accents on people's names and on companies, international, like, so there's a whole bunch of these just sort of funky wonkinesses. And then you've got shitbirds who want to just, you know, put in QWERTY, ASDF, or just like nonsense strings.
yeah.
So I'm like, guys, stop it. So even then, I had just to like quarantine a whole section of this list, and I'm now combining it with all of these other things. And yo, when you guys are, and I say you guys, I'm like to the audience out there who never works with like big data, right? Data doesn't just start out pretty.
No,
Data
it's madness.
is
It's
nasty ass, tragedy. And then what I don't have is I don't have a solid team of data engineers. I have a data engineer who's my homie, but there's a bit of a language barrier. I'm afraid that
and
he,
you're not like technically on the same org structure team.
right?
So he's like, yeah,
So I got to bounce around to find out, how to talk to him. And they had a product or a project that was supposed to, be done at the end of last quarter, but it is still a work in progress. It's not like ready to open up. They've given me some like early access. They've made a couple of things for me, because I've begged for them. But even so, the grind don't stop because I'm the only one. Like I'm the fucking Highlander up in this bitch, and I'm
yeah.
fucking chopping off heads of data sets left and right, and I'm like, can you guys like help a brother out? Because again, I told my boss the other day, we were talking, and I was just like, yo, you ever see those Navy SEAL videos where they bind your hands and your feet and then like they throw you into water and fuck with your mask? Like, that's me, bro. I'm drowning.
Did you really say that to him?
I did. I did.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And I was
I
like,
love it.
bro, help me out. And he's like, what do
Right?
you want me to do? And I was like, anything, something, light a fire
Anything,
under somebody's ass, you know?
right?
I don't care. Just do
Whatever
what you
you
gotta
want, do
do,
something. Yeah.
right? And so, it was a constructive conversation, but it was like, it's there's nothing is happening soon. It's one of those, well, you're just gonna hold out until the cavalry arrives. And tomorrow morning, first thing, I have a demo. They're gonna demo the thing, which is basically what I've already built my damn self, and I put my own database together like this morning while I was waiting for some of my shit to load. Ugh.
I just
But oh, I don't
imagine,
have technical skills enough to do data engineering. Bitch, I've been doing this shit for the last 6 months.
you remember like the cartoons from our era where like steam would come out of somebody's ears? You just made
Oh
that
yeah.
big woo, and I see the steam coming out, and I was like, ah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really want them to help you, and I want you to not be in this situation anymore. It's not good.
Yeah. Um, and so but I mean again, I'm in demand, so job security.
Yes, you are. That
Yeah,
was
I'll
the other
just
good. That was the other
keep
good thing
plugging
I
a hole in the
felt,
floor. What?
right? That was the other good thing I felt came out of that same productive conversation with your boss. Not only is it the best conversation you've had with that guy in like a year,
Yeah.
but I was like, oh, he's not like he did not at all seem interested in like doing away with you. He was like, oh, I see where you're stuck, man. I totally get it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was good.
I'm frustrated out of a sense of customer service is that, I've got all these folks that are waiting on me and I've got this backlog and I'm a fucking bottleneck and I hate it. I hate it when other people have bottlenecks and then I'm a bottleneck. And so, I mean, this is basically what I did is that I was like, look, I'm spending like 80, 90%, 90% of my time on admin and only 10% on like my core job function because I'm having to, do the upstream, sourcing and data systems because the infrastructure just isn't there. And this is something that a lot of my like if you look at my Substack at who I'm subscribed to like data governance playbook and like the data ecosystem, Penguin data analytics. Like I like all of this data stuff because I'm like you guys for real, we drowning up in this bitch. And
Right.
what's challenging is a lot of the maybe mid-sized companies don't have like really mature um, data teams or mature data strategy, and that's a big thing that our company is trying to work on right now. And here I am, just like, you know, cog in the fucking wheel, man. And I'm like rusted. I'm janky as fuck. I got like a loose thing, and I'm like, somebody help me, and every time, somebody asks and puts in another request, it's just more shit on my shoulders. So um, that brings us to the first thing on our list um to go over today. And I mean, again, this is like a family podcast. I say it's a family podcast, but here I am cursing up a storm because that's what I do. um you know
Yeah.
and what I came with is actually from that conversation with my boss, and I call it BTE, also known as Big Titty Energy, which is a lack of, and I wrote this down, a lack of empathy in someone caused by a distorted perception of reality, specifically when they are used to getting their way because of some in-demand characteristic, e.g., attractiveness, money, positional authority, etc., such that they don't recognize the barriers for other people who don't possess that thing.
Yep.
So it's not exactly pretty privilege, but it's generally the same lack of empathy that develops because of pretty privilege. So that's the thing. And this idea I got from the show Billions, where Bobby Axelrod, the main character, one of the main characters, meets his rival for the first time. So it's a hedge fund manager and a district attorney, and they, the conflict between the public and private sector, right? The merchant and the bureaucrat.
Yep.
And the merchant has made his money, from nothing. And the bureaucrat has been old money. And the bureaucrat, as old money, has all of these expectations of, who's supposed to be prominent and who's supposed to be in power. And the merchant who came from nothing is like that new money, new rich, and he doesn't abide by a lot of the class things, and he has more money than the old money guy. So there's a sort of like Great Gatsby of it all happening in the background of that TV show. But when they first meet on the pilot, they show up and they're more or less amiable. And he's like, hey, what's going on? Why is everybody doing the thing? And he's like, oh, I'm a hot girl with big tits. And I was like, yo, that's for real, right?
Right? It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's something that I said. I was like, yo, I'm really struggling, with communication in the company. And my boss was like, oh, I haven't noticed that. And I was like, that's because you've got big titty energy. You're a hot girl with big tits. Nobody's gonna tell you no, Mr.
But
C-suite.
he's got BPE bias.
Yeah, check your BTE bias at the door, biatch. Yeah. Um,
He really
yeah.
does. Wow.
And so um, that phenomenon is something I talked to Jim about. And we discovered that bosses typically aren't leaders because they don't fit my definition of leader, which is vision times the quantity management plus mentorship. So you've got to know where we're going. You've got to have some sort of a roadmap or a plan to get us there. And if
Yep.
we aren't currently possessing the skills needed, you're going to have to help us like achieve those, skills, level up those skills. And
Right.
if you can't, don't, won't, doesn't really matter. It's that you're just not a great leader.
Yep.
And so there is this sort of concept where it's like, well, we're going to empower our people to be autonomous. But there's a difference between delegation and abdication. And I feel
Yeah.
like there's a lot of abdication going on where it's like, oh, here, you got this. And then I'm just going to not think about it anymore until I need it. And then I'm going to blame you for it because I gave you ownership. Well, I gave you ownership over this thing. Why didn't you fix it?
You didn't give me tools that I need to actually do that task.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that was a big chunk of that conversation is, I'm responsible and accountable, but I am not consulted or informed on any of the decisions regarding the things that I'm supposed to be responsible and accountable for. Yikes.
Awesome. Awesome.
So, how that all relates to the family organization is these are the same problems that parents and households are having.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
I was talking to our one of our overseas friends, and he was telling me about how frustrated he was with his wife, because he's like, "Oh, I told her to do this thing, and she asked me to do this, and like took 6 hours out of my day, and I blah 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 blah." And I was like, "Bro, she preggers, right?" And he was like, well, yeah. And he's like, well, it's just so like it's so easy. Like, why didn't you just do this? And it's like, you do know you are smarter than the average bear, right? What's easy to you might not be so easy and obvious to everybody else.
This is a
And
problem that you and he share.
yeah. And so, I speak from experience when I say like, hey man, you can't just get mad at somebody for something that they didn't see. I mean, it sucks that the thing didn't happen, but it's
Yeah.
not a won't, it's a can't. And if you want that, that is the crucial influence. So crucial, I'm all about that crucial series, crucial
Yeah, you
conversations,
love those
crucial
books.
influence, crucial accountability.
Yep.
And the big takeaway from crucial influence is that most people will think it's a motivation issue when it's generally an ability issue,
Mhm.
you know? And
So
so,
there's just a skill gap there.
yes. So before you like yell at your kid or your spouse because you think that they're lazy or ignorant or not paying attention, it might just be that they don't know how to do the thing. And if you're like, but it's so easy, think, wait a minute, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. Is it easy for you? What are the things that you're not seeing for them? What are the hidden costs to them that maybe you didn't pay attention to?
Yeah.
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 And that is a big one. And so, what you're constantly doing in business is um, managing blind spots, right? You're always flying blind to some extent because you can't predict the future, right? So, what my dad said is you've got to do your best to lie with integrity. So, everything that you say about the future isn't true because it hasn't happened yet and you can't know.
Right? It's not for sure.
But as an analyst and, data scientist, that's exactly what the fuck my job is to predict the future.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Right?
Yeah. But then here's the rub, right? Then here's the next metaphor, right? If you're walking a long distance, you're not going to know what's on the other side. You have a map, and the map is some kind of a representation. It's a model of your territory, but it's not the actual terrain, right? It's easier to draw, a line on the map than it is to walk the whole fucking, miles and miles to Mount Mordor.
Real talk.
So I think being um, a little bit more. mm, compassionate or aware, considerate of other people's limitation and capacity, even if it's not where you think it should be. Like, figure out where your own standard is and then look at where they are relative to your standard. And if they're below what you think is standard, instead of just like shitting on them and being like, you are weak, then like, maybe think about like, oh, am I going to lead this person? What was that video we watched at lunch today? It was like, don't think about what I'm going to do to you, but what I'm going to do for you, right?
Yes, which is great advice.
It is. It is. And I struggle with this because a lot like I'm a fucking freight train. That's what they called me in football in high school is the Nate train, And so like I
I
will
am like
run
not
your ass
surprised
over.
about this.
So, you know, if you're an obstacle, that's a problem. And if you're a leader, you can't be thinking about your people as obstacles, right?
Yeah.
You've got to coach them up. You got to help them help the team. And a lot of the time, people want to make a contribution. They just don't know how, you
So
know?
real. So real.
So if you're a leader, if you're in a leadership position, and if you're a parent, you're a leader, congratulations. And one of your jobs as a leader is not to like avoid teaching somebody because you think that they're bad or stupid or can't learn, right?
Yeah.
You know, they're inconsiderate because you have identified a blind spot or something that is too difficult for them to handle.
Yep.
So, what that really means is okay, this is me going back to that flow diagram. The anxiety, where it's too hard relative to your skill level, boredom, where it's too easy relative to your skill level, flow is where it's about that 70 to 85% zone, right? It's
Yeah.
the same shit as yoga, right? You don't want to go until you're like straining and then you like tear a hamstring trying to get into triangle pose, warrior number
Right. Or
three or
path.
some shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Or you're like, oh, I threw up my back trying to do a wheel pose. Like, yo, calm the fuck down. Like, use a block. Use,
Right. Like it didn't need to be all that.
yeah. I mean, you see me doing my mobility, right? Like
You
that
do.
stick, I've got like a stick that I hold on to so that because I'm heavy. And so if I've got a joint that isn't very strong, and I sit in a chair all day, so I'm stretching, to try and unfuck my hip joints.
Yeah.
So if I'm, you know, in a position where I know that my body weight is too heavy for my joint to be able to handle, oh yeah, I'm grabbing sticks, I'm holding on to bars, I'm doing
You're giving
whatever,
yourself support. Yeah.
yeah, whatever support I need to be able to get into that position, hold it and do reps. Because it's not going
Yep.
to get stronger if I just am constantly like beating the shit out of my joint.
For real though.
And your kid isn't going to get stronger if you keep beating the shit out of them too. Mentally,
That's
emotionally, psychologically, physically, whatever, you
super
know?
accurate. Yep.
So, with that concept of learning, near and far transfer.
Yeah.
Woo-wee!
Ooh,
I
this is
have
a fun one.
wanted. What?
This is a fun one.
Yeah, I've I love this. I love this term because it gave me vocabulary for what it is that I do. What's my saying? One thing?
10,000 things.
Exactly. And what that really corresponds to is far transfer. So I got that term, by the way, from Gori no Sho by Miyamoto Musashi, the
Oh,
Book of Five Rings. And he says, he basically wrote that book as a philosophy on sword fighting as a way of life. And
and I love it.
I love this guy. If like people always ask, like, if you could meet anybody in history, who would you meet? It would be that guy. I would
That's
meet Miyamoto
amazing.
Musashi.
That's a great choice.
Yeah, because he was the greatest swordsman basically ever to live in Japan. He fought over like 60 duels and he died of old age.
Hell yeah.
Deadly motherfucker.
That dude's a baller.
Deadly motherfucker. Right?
Yeah,
And so it's no wonder that he's like practically immortalized as a mythic figure in Japanese folklore and mindset. You know,
right?
this guy was also he was tall. I think he was like a 6 foot tall Japanese man back in like the 1500s. That's
Yo, that's
bananas.
insane. That's insane.
And he popularized a sword or two-handed sword technique. So you'll often see like this view of somebody who's holding like two swords out to the side.
Yeah.
Um, and that is a Musashi callback because he I think popularized and some historian is going to at me in this, but this is how it lands in my mind at the present moment. um he popularized the use of a long and short sword because back in feudal ass Japan, bandits would show up and if they didn't want to pay for something, they'd start a ruckus and you could get into a fight with somebody in big honor culture and people will be having fights. You talk shit about me, you talk shit
And
about
that
me, I'll
that
beat
could
your
get
ass.
in that honor culture, a misunderstanding could get deadly really quick.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, you look at the etymology of language. That's why the Japanese language is so goddamn polite. It's because, it comes from a time where people would cut your head off if you offended the wrong person.
I mean, that's very excessive.
Right? So, what do you have so this is also where the weaponry and like what you carry as a sword. So you've got a short sword, the wakizashi, and the long sword, the daito, and that long sword is like a two-handed, sword that's designed to basically sever limbs.
I
It's
mean,
considered a Buddhist weapon because the objective is to kill your enemy with a single stroke. Contrast the gladius, which is what those gladiators used in the arena.
yeah.
And some of these things they're one-handed sword, short sword. It's like they would make these shit out of bronze, or some like harder metal. And so these things are heavy, and they're not designed to cut so much as to break. You want it to be pointy enough to stab through somebody, but also think about the heavy usage it's going to get. You don't want the sword to break in the heat of battle after you've been swinging this thing around practically like an axe. People don't think about the like the physical labor of a battle. Like think about like a jujitsu or like a wrestler. Like these guys get in really good shape and they're like grappling for 5 minute rounds. Now, if you haven't fought for 5 minutes straight, whoo wee, you think, oh, I'm a runner. I can run really good. I don't give a fuck if you run. Get on, like get onto the mat and then go for a 5 minute round against somebody who is stressing every single one of your muscle groups. Um, you're gonna be fucking exhausted, right? So when people like are in boxing matches that go full 12 rounds, like a lot of people have no concept for how exhausted you are after fighting for that long.
I have an idea. The first thing I thought of was I was like, oh, it's like being in labor.
Yeah.
You're just in pain and getting assaulted for hours on end, and you can't do anything about it but endure.
Yeah.
And it's so physically demanding. Um, and obviously it's different than the like high intensity, quick exertion of a fight. It's a different type of physicality, but that was the first thing I thought. I was like, oh shit, it's like giving birth.
Yeah. And so we talked about that the other day is it's like, um, different advantages that males and females have. You know, women can see like more of a color spectrum, and men have a higher disgust tolerance. The thing that we actually tend to be the most egalitarian on is endurance. Um, Endurance runners tend to like if you look, what is it, the ultra marathoners, there seems to be almost no differentiator in terms of ultra marathons between men
Really?
and women. Yeah. So what that tells you is that humans were designed for long distance endurance. So this thing about pain tolerance, oh, women have a higher pain, not necessarily. What you really have is that's about where males and females are like completely equal, is our ability to endure painful shit. The guy version, well, you're more likely to have like one of your limbs hacked off. You know? Hey, you're more likely to get like stabbed or have something break while you're out by yourself and have to find a way to get yourself back to the village before you get eaten.
Super fun.
Woo!
Super fun.
So,
That was
like,
great.
very different types of labor, right? Very different types of endurance required, but still, pain tolerance, endurance are required
Yeah.
for that hunter-gatherer life, you know?
Yeah. Totally.
So, near and far transfer is how we got onto this topic. And so, in sword fighting, it is a really physical activity, but it's also a highly mental activity. So, comparing pregnancy, right? When you're in labor for an extended period of time, you have, you know, a whole swath of emotions. You're like, oh my God, this really hurts. You're like, oh my God, am I dying?
Yep.
Um, there you go. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, that's exactly the same shit. Somebody has like sliced you, and you're like, oh my God, I have a hole in my leg. Um, Standing really hurts, but if I fall down, I will certainly be trampled and or stabbed with a spear.
Don't want that.
Let's keep standing.
Let's stay on our feet. Yep.
So, you know, one thing, 10,000 things is the concept of far transfer. What have I learned from the sword that I can apply to calligraphy? What have I learned from, you know, social interactions in polite society that I can apply to avoiding unnecessary fights? What have
Yeah.
I learned from a tea ceremony that I can apply to my disciplined practice of, um, you know, keeping my uniform in such a position that I'm ready for battle, but also that I'm presentable, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so that is my superpower. My superpower is far transfer. So,
It
just for
really is.
definitions, near transfer is when you learn something in one subject that helps you understand another concept in the same subject. Far transfer is when you learn something in one subject that helps you in another subject. So, you learn a principle in biology, and that helps you understand some other biological system. You Far transfer is you learn something in biology and now it helps you understand something in chemistry, you know,
Yep.
or physics or math or, right?
Yeah.
And I was listening to a podcast with Daniel Pink earlier today, and he was talking about this with regard to writing. He said writing is engineering, and I was like, I love that shit. That's exactly why I clicked on that podcast,
Who's this
because
guy?
Daniel Pink. He wrote oh my God, now I'm blanking on the books that he's written. Um
The writer.
yeah, Daniel Pink he's a nonfiction writer.
Okay.
Drive, The Whole Mind, To Sell is Human. And what he was basically talking about is what we've sort of said about my writing process. I don't write books, I engineer them. So I like my process is quite involved, and I've refined it over time. I had so many acronyms. I love acronyms, and I still do, right? So, but now when I write a story, I have the SG4, which is a nod to Story Grid. And Story Grid says that there's five components of any story, and I broke it actually down into four because I prefer four act structure to five. We don't need to get into why. Then I do what's called the Disney song. I got that one from Abby Emmons, who's got a YouTube channel, and she basically talks about how in every Disney movie, the opening song is basically giving you a foreshadow of the plot.
That's
What
great.
will my
That's so true.
reflection show? Who I am inside, right? And so, sure enough, we get to find out what Mulan is made of, right?
Right? Yeah.
Um, Someday my prince will come, right? And then, sure enough, she finds that prince, right?
Ta-da! Yeah.
Um, Part of your world, sure enough, she gets some legs, right? A whole new
It's
world.
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure enough, the street rat becomes assaulted or becomes, well, yeah, the prince.
A prince, yeah.
Prince Ali Ababwa, right?
God, I
So
love those classic movies.
so the
Anyway,
Disney song is what I use to frame my character transformations, right? They start as one thing and they end as something else. And then they have this crucible that they have to go through to make that transformation occur. The SG4 is what I use for plots, which also sounds like Stargate, right? Because what does
yeah.
Stargate do? It takes you on a journey, right? Teleports you from point A to point B. Woo.
Yep.
So it's the magic in between.
I love it.
So what I've just done is gone from labor to family to storytelling to engineering to writing all in one thing. That
Yeah.
is far transfer.
Yep.
This is why I confuse the shit out of everybody I talk to.
Is it because most people are not good at far transfer?
It's because they're struggling to track all of the different threads across the different domains.
How is that different?
Think about, oh my God, Doctor Strange Mom. Do you remember that movie?
Oh,
The
yeah.
second Doctor Strange movie?
Yeah. The
And
weird portal jumping.
yeah, and he meets Nicaragua Chavez,
That's right.
Bolivia Chavez,
Olivia Chavez.
right?
Yeah.
Her name, I think her name is actually America Chavez. But she teleports between dimensions and she just keeps bouncing back and forth. And she and Doctor Strange, end up going through all of these different, realities. And it's like every time you go into a new one, it's like, oh, well, this looks familiar, but it's not my world, right? Because there's an infinite number of multiverses in this situation. So when I transfer from one universe to another, it's hard for somebody else to follow me onto that next universe.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. And so this is why, writers tend to say don't mix your metaphors because you'll confuse your reader. And I struggle with this because that's how I understand the world. I look at something and I say, oh, that reminds me of this. And then it becomes a mnemonic device, which mnemonics are just things that stick into your mind. It's like putting a peg into something so that you'll spot it later.
Yeah.
So I use these as mnemonics to help me remember. This is why I have frameworks and acronyms for everything. They're like text expanders to say, oh, let me click on that and then it'll open up another thing. Oh, let me click on that. Bloop, bloop. And now I can drill down and drill back up into different subject matters because I've created these little frameworks to attach onto them. But this is also how I solve problems is whenever I encounter something unfamiliar, I look at what are the familiar frameworks that sort of fit, and then I approach it like whatever that framework is.
Mhm.
So, why is near and far transfer important? It's because, well, when you're dealing with somebody or when you have a child, they don't have your lexicon, yo.
Nope.
They don't have the vocabulary to tell you what they need. And they get better and better at it, hopefully, as they get older. But like baby, it just knows scream until I get whatever the thing it was. And so what are you doing? You're like rotating. Okay, do you want to be rocked? Do you need food? Do you have poop? Do you have like what are we doing here? You
And
know?
babies don't even like, not only can they not even identify sensations, they almost can't even register good and bad. They just feel any feeling in their body, like hunger, and it's screaming because they have no other,
What does it mean?
they can't understand it, they can't verbalize it, they have no other means of communication. So it's just, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And so when you realize that screaming is their only communication mechanism, right? Then you have to figure out what does this screaming mean?
And they're
And
just,
it might literally just mean, I'm uncomfortable because it's a little cold, or I'm
right?
anxious because there's some feeling that I have that I've never had before.
They're literally alerting you to the presence of a sensation.
I have a sensation.
That's it.
Ah!
Something happened. The sensation exists, and they're just like, alert, alert. It's like a smoke detector,
Your child, your baby is a smoke detector.
basically.
Uh,
A
it's a
very sensitive
sensation
one.
detector. Yeah.
Yeah, a very sensitive one. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a wild time.
So, for you guys out there who have these new babies that are basically just screaming because a sensation happened to them, you know, you can troubleshoot all you want, but there will be a large degree of uncertainty about what it is that this little alien parasite actually wants from you because it doesn't know.
Nope. And sometimes babies get stuck in a loop too. So you might go through the list and address all the possibilities, but that baby is crying and can't get out of it. So
Yeah.
what can't stop? Like we saw this a little bit when we watched Creed 2. He gets left alone with that baby and they do the little montage and he's trying to feed it and change and then he's on the phone with his mom. So please get me back.
What do we
I
do?
won't stop crying. Just call me when you get this message. Sometimes that's just how it be.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
And it misses mom,
It was
right?
mom.
Maybe that's it. Maybe
And
that's all it is.
that sometimes is it because it's like, that baby spent 9 months with the smell and the heartbeat and the warmth, and then it comes out and you hand it to the dad, and the baby's like, who's this guy? I don't know this
Right. Who the
guy.
fuck are you?
Who's this? You just handed me to this dude? We don't know this person. He doesn't smell like us. Like,
Right?
they just don't know. They don't get it. Like, and
Yeah.
sometimes they just freak out. And that's also, I think about it too. It's obviously easier to reflect on this now that the kids are a little older and we're not in it right this
Yeah.
minute. But I look back and I'm like, man, how shocking must that be to be born and
Oh yeah, that's why you don't
experience,
remember that shit.
right? And like to experience the world from a sensory perspective for the first time and have no cognitive ability to process it. No wonder babies cry all the time. That shit would be awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
We take for granted as adults our ability to interface with, talk about, understand, name, explain all these things that we experience. And an infant has none of that.
Yeah. So given that, um, and Jim, I'm gonna tell Jim to listen to this podcast because bro.
Tell Jim and Christopher.
This is what you're gonna deal with for the next couple of years.
Yeah,
Good luck. Um,
here for you.
right? And
Yep.
so, you know, this brings me to how generations are changing. And some of the things that were obvious before are not obvious now. And I talk about this with atomization. And, I was talking to my friend the other day about how, Gen Z, they got a rough deal, man. Like you asked me this was like, well, are we really having a harder time of it? Or is it just what we're old enough now to be like,
It
bro, back in
happens to
my day?
everybody. Yeah, it happens to everybody at a certain spot.
Yeah, yeah. So are we at back in my day? And I said, oh, that's a great question. I think it's a little of both. But at the same time, we do have a bigger transition, and every successive generation now is having a harder time of it because of two functions. And one I'm saying is that our timelines have gotten shorter. So
Mhm.
it used to be that like your life would be basically the same as your grandparents' life. And that was like most of human existence, period.
For the longest time, for like
Hundreds of thousands,
millennia.
right?
Yeah.
So now, right, just in the last 2000 years or so, we've gotten like shorter and shorter on those cycles. And every time there's a major, social, political, technological change of some sort, it sort of throws everything out of whack, right? And so now what's happening is those cycles have been getting shorter and shorter and shorter to where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the culture gap between a parent and a child was like that of a grandparent to their child. So, you don't know what I'm going through, mom. And the answer is, you're right. She doesn't know what you're going through because she didn't have the fucking internet,
Yep. There was
period.
no social media.
Our parents didn't have any fucking internet or social media.
Sure.
So our parents didn't have the internet, and then our kids, right? We didn't have social media,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Totally.
When Facebook showed up, shit, no, it wasn't even Facebook, it was AOL. When
Oh,
AOL Messenger became a thing, we were
and
like, whoa,
do you remember? Do you remember? And like your friend group would be like, are you going to be on the chat room tonight? Like we're all going
right?
to be online and talk to each other. It was so funny.
And I remember there was, oh my God, it was sci forums, and I would get on a forum, and then I would just like talk philosophy with just random people on the internet. And I was like, oh, this is so great. People have such interesting thoughts. And this is the, Ender's Game, the book, they're talking about, what is it? Peter and Valentine, which are Ender's siblings, were basically trying to shift the public opinion on the nets. Like they literally just called it the nets, which ended up being the modern um, internet, right? The modern discourse. But the difference is they had like named themselves Locke and Demosthenes, and they would argue, and everybody would have these like really highbrow intellectual conversations. Meanwhile, Orson Card, poor guy, is like so sad at how the Nets have actually played out, which instead of having these highbrow intellectual conversations advancing philosophy and, the human lexicon, nah, we just shitpost and troll each other on the internet like a bunch of monkeys throwing feces at the zoo.
It's so disappointing. Like it's so
Yo,
disappointing, especially when you say lay it out like that and you're like, man, to have envisioned this glorious like future for ourselves where you're like, oh, imagine having access to Plato or a mind like that or Socrates and without living in Greece. Like, imagine having access to these great minds and that kind of intellectual conversation. And then instead, what do? We like make cat videos and yell at each other.
I'm not mad at the cat
I
videos,
was
but
gonna
I'd
say
rather them stay on the video.
I'm mostly still online for the cat videos and like recipes and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's like it is both remarkable and disappointing. Like even when I get disappointed with the internet, even when
It's remarkably disappointing.
sometimes, sometimes it is. Even when I get disappointed, I do have these moments where I'm like, what a profound piece of technology that we all just carry around in our back pocket. If I need to
Yeah.
look something up, I don't have to walk to the library to do it. Like I have access to all this information, all this massive learning tool freely at my disposal, and it still is very remarkable to me, even though I don't love how we use it all the time.
Yeah. And so to that end, that's the experimental like landscape that we threw Gen Z into. We're like, here's a casino slash crack for your brain.
Good luck. Isn't
Good
it
luck.
cool? Look what we made.
Like, because I mean, but also it's like it's ideological, right? And this is the second part, right? So if we've got time series as one axis, the other is fractionation. And so mass customization, you can do it any way you want, right? That's what was at Burger King, have it your way, right?
Yep.
Or no,
Yep.
was it have it your way?
Yeah.
Maybe that was McDonald's.
No, it was Burger
Um,
King. You were right. Have it your way.
okay. Um, and then you've got everybody wants to do things their own way. But here's the rub, right? This is what I say about atheism. Atheism, is basically a religion of one, right? Because your beliefs are unique to you specifically. They're not shared with anybody else, which is where I get into my diagrams. Okay. Um, So oh God, I'm not gonna draw this whole thing out on the screen because I feel like we're already coming up on time. But we started a little late, so we can be a little late. Um, so I basically think about epistemology a lot. And one of the problems that I got into, maybe 10 years ago, not 10 years, maybe it was like 2018, 19, um is I started recognizing this like weird phenomenon, and it was mostly happening around like comic books, right? Because they'd been doing all of those comic book movies and they're really great. And I loved those Avengers movies that were coming out. And then it was like something shifted in Hollywood and they all just started getting like bad. And it was like, what's going on? Why do all the movies suck right now? And it was like,
What
I
is
realized,
happening?
right? And I was like, I can tell the plot of the story based on what like race and gender has been cast. And I was like, why are we doing this? And I came to this like awareness of like relativism. And it's I've always thought of relativism as like a moral relativism where, well, this person thinks that this is good behavior and that person thinks that's bad behavior, right? So you
Yeah.
have disagreements on what we believe is right or true. Okay. But then there's epistemological relativism. And that came about with this whole my truth kind of thing. And what's challenging about my truth is that it's sort of a rejection of any concept of absolute truth. So, without going too deep into like modernism, postmodernism, and metamodernism, ugh.
Oh, yeah.
So, modernism was this idea of aspiration where, we're going to make things that we want to maybe aspire to, but that have a certain level of verisimilitude. So, this is like Iron Man 1, where you've got a guy who is an arms dealer, right? But he doesn't think about it in terms of the warfare. He thinks about it in terms of the science. He's an engineer, right?
Yeah.
He enjoys understanding and solving a problem and building something to mitigate that problem.
Yeah.
And then he realizes, oh shit, these are having real life consequences to real people. I should probably stop doing that and protect people from myself. So the irony is, Iron Man creates a suit of armor to protect himself, but he stands in front of the people that he used to sell to, right? I'm going to stand as a shield between the people I care about and the people who want to do them harm. And so what a beautiful metaphor. But when it came out 2008, it was a, you know, there was a lot of that holdover from 9/11 and military industrial complex was a hot topic, and we were talking about the Middle East a lot, and then sure enough they've got him and he's basically in the desert and one of his own weapons blows him up. Woo. So there's a level of verisimilitude despite the comic relief and sort of fantastic nature of the storytelling and setting. So
You
it's
know,
still aspirational.
that's
Hmm?
the only Marvel movie I saw in the theater is the first Iron Man.
I'm so sorry because if you had seen The Winter Soldier
Ah,
in the theaters, holy shit balls.
I would have flipped out.
It was great. It was
Mhm.
great. Um, and then postmodernism said, let's deconstruct and subvert everything. Well, everything can be broken down until it's meaningless. And I'm like, cool, but why the fuck would you want to?
Right?
Right? And so Gen Z got stuck in this postmodernism because, well, here's probably the best argument I've heard for postmodernism is that, you know, there was this ideal that was great for the majority, but there were these minorities who had no access to that ideal. And it's like, well, we want to participate in this ideal too, but we can't because, we didn't set that as the ideal and we don't have any agency and you guys are trying to force us into it. And so we're going to deconstruct your ideal to show you that it's actually meaningless. But what it ended up doing was just deconstructing everything to where majority and minority alike basically had no meaning. And that's where this sort of insincere storytelling, bathos, where it's like, we're going to make a joke instead of letting the dramatic moment breathe. And
Mhm.
that's why everything feels like it's comedic or buffoonish because it's reductio ad absurdum, which means to reduce something to the point of absurdity. So now you have all of these filmmakers who are making absurdist films because they're looking at the modern movement and trying to be antithetical to it, but also getting rid of all meaning um, in the process. So what I look at is three Venn diagrams. And the first one is the overlap of truth versus perspective, your POV. So, you know, when I say truth, I mean like empirical reality. I mean like observable, measurable, reproducible truth, right? I'm not talking about like some sort of, well, there is an absolute meaning to the universe. I'm not even talking
And
about that.
like,
I'm just talking
you
about
mean like
science.
like the effect of gravity.
Right, right. And the thing is, we can say gravity works, most of the time when you're on Earth. For sure, right? But when you're in space, things operate a little differently. When you're moving at speed, things operate a little differently, but we can say gravity is a thing that exists and it's pretty regular, right?
You're not going
So,
to beat gravity if you jump off a high-rise building.
right, right. If you're in an elevator and it falls, you're not going to jump at the right moment because
Yeah.
gravity. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right. So then you have the overlap being wisdom, where there's the thing that you believe that is incorrect, that is not actually aligned with empirical reality. And then there is the thing that you believe that is aligned with reality. And this is not like, oh, I just believe something because the cultist, next door told me to. Um, but it's that I believe this thing because maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe that's just what I heard somewhere, that's what I grew up believing. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to disagree with what, I was raised with. But then you have two POVs. So your perspective and my perspective. And by the way, when we have the overlap of empirical reality with your belief set, I'm calling that overlap wisdom. Okay? That just for the sake of this podcast. With my POV and your POV, right? There's what you believe, what I believe, and then when we overlap, we'll call that culture, right? So the third Venn diagram is when you have yours, mine, and then empirical reality. So the overlap of my perspective with reality is wisdom that I have. The overlap with reality that you have is your wisdom, and the shared overlap with reality is cultural wisdom, right?
Nice. Do you want to show your drawing? You gonna
Oh,
hold it?
I'm gonna hold up the drawing.
Yeah.
See, here's my drawing, right? So
Yeah.
we've got the overlaps, and then we've got the big overlaps here.
Yeah.
So
It's very good.
everything that is not in the realm of reality, hate to break it to you folks, that's the land of delusion. You are in wackadoodle delulu land if it is
Dun.
not in reality.
Yo,
Yo.
bottom line.
And our youngest, we had an epistemology sermon this weekend. And our
We're
youngest
so cool.
was like, well, and I said, when is it good to be in the realm of delusion? And he really wants to believe that it's okay to be there sometimes, right? Because that's where he
Loves
lives
his,
a lot of the time.
he loves his imagination.
Right. And it's like that's cool to go into your imagination. However, your imagination is like a testing ground. It's like a holodeck. And you want to try stuff out and then apply it to the world to see if it's real, not to just stick around there in, masturbatory digital, absent realities. That's the entire theme or thesis really of Inception. It's do you become a dreamwalker and live in the whole realm of delusion because it's better there, you like it more, or do you come back to reality? And our protagonist decides, I'd rather live in reality with my actual children than stay in a dream world forever, where I can
Playing
just,
with my deceased wife.
imagine whatever I want.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so sad.
So this is the next thing that sort of breaks people up and why Gen Z is having such a hard time and the younger generations are struggling. It's because there's less cultural wisdom, i.e., people who have something that is aligned with empirical reality, that is a shared belief set, and there is more atomization along those lines. So you have a lot more dreamwalkers, people who believe things and they're associated with a shared culture that is completely detached from empiricism.
Mhm.
And that's because how do we have standards of evidence? We think of science, experience, and consensus. And you can have an expert consensus, right? And people will say, oh, trust the science. And it's like, you're not trusting science, fool. If you don't know how to do an experiment your damn self and you didn't actually do it, you are relying on expert consensus, right?
Yes. Yep.
But most people will rely on the wisdom of the crowd, They will go off of what everybody else is doing and their own personal experience. This is how I feel. This is what happened to me. And so that's what I believe, even though those two are dramatically less accurate than the scientific method.
Yep.
And so now what you have is a whole generation who has not only been inundated with more delusion, illusion, and playtime for their imaginations via screens, they are encouraged to do it. They're encouraged to trust consensus, trust their feelings, and not use science. As a matter of fact, that's actually what Star Wars tells you. Don't look at the numbers, just go on your instinct. Yikes.
I mean,
Yikes.
that's great for a fantasy epic.
Right. Where there is an actual magic force, though.
I was gonna say there's magic involved.
Right.
So,
Right. So if there's a magic force that tells you the shit and it's right all the time, then yeah, okay. That's actually empiricism
yeah,
because it's a real testable hypothesis. Right?
yep, yep.
Yeah. But we do not have a provable magic system in our world that I'm aware of.
That we know of. That's correct.
So until somebody brings me the legit magic, David Blaine, you know,
We're ready. We're ready. We'll take it.
right? Till somebody brings me that real magic, then I'm going to go with the actual science and run experiments.
Yep.
And if my, by the way, and this is the only reason that you should trust your experience over expert consensus or science, is if you are the expert in that subject matter.
That's true. If
Yeah.
you put all your experience and like learning points into that thing, okay.
Yeah. But as a scientist, my base operating principle is that I am mostly wrong
I mean, that's wise.
because there's a lot of shit that I know that I don't know.
Yep.
And the more we want to think we are right, the more likely we are to be wrong.
Yeah.
So, um, don't walk
Yay.
around with that big titty energy.
Keep it in check.
All right, you want to close this out? Say something.
Um, I don't know. I felt like that was funny and we should have just cut it off there.
Oh, I just, okay. Well,
I don't have a better closing statement because that to me is so funny.
do you want, would you do the honors of saying big titty energy so it's not just me?
Oh, big titty energy.
Yeah,
Yay.
Ignice.
Ignis.